All right, hey everyone. My name is Greg Catano. I'm one of the partners with Chris Crisatelli and VR Fest. And welcome to the 5th annual Virtual Reality Festival. And thank you for getting here right on time. So thank you for being here. I know it's a sparse crowd, but we really appreciate you being here right for the first panel. So today I wanted to introduce, wanted to give thanks to our sponsors. One being Hologate and the other Alienware. So thank you for your sponsorship of VR Fest. And today we're going to introduce the first panel with Bob Cooney. Bob Cooney is a dear friend of mine. He's one of the foremost experts in virtual reality, location-based entertainment, and everything, family entertainment. So one of the bigger consultants. He's consulted for Hologate, for zero latency. And he also has a new book that he's just put out. And it is Real Money from Virtual Reality. So be sure to pick that up from Bob. And he's also a writer. He's a well-followed writer in the space. So thank you for all your contributions for virtual reality. And round of applause. And over here we have Tarrnie Williams. And Tarrnie's with Blueprint Reality. And he's going to speak about your technology, your platform, which is a mixed reality platform. And could you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, we're just going to talk about the MixCast platform,
MixCast
and in
platform.
particular MixCast Moments, something that we're showing on the floor in Intel's booth at CES. So come by and be the star of your own 90-second virtual reality trailer.
Perfect. So we're going to kick this panel off, and thank you, both of you, for starting our first panel off.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, Tarrnie.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm really good. So we are coming to you live, and we're streaming live. So everybody out there that's watching, we're at Planet 13, which is America's largest weed dispensary, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, we're on the non-dispensary side.
We are on the event. It's also an event space, which is really funny. And we thought we would do one of those like Wake and Bake, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk podcasts, but they ixnayed that. So no, I don't smoke weed.
Yeah,
though,
no, exactly.
So I wouldn't know how to do it anyway. So I want to talk, before we get into the technology, Tarrnie, I want to talk a little bit about what is mixed reality. There's a lot of conversation, debate around, like, what is it and the terminology, MR, XR, AR, blah, blah. So what is mixed reality from your perspective? And then we'll get into why it matters.
Sure, I think, as you said, there's so much terminology in the space that it is incredibly complicated to navigate. And, mixed reality as a term has been used for a wide variety of things. But I think the best definition of it that I like at the highest level is that it's when you're mixing virtual things and real visual things at the same time. So that could mean augmented reality, where you're overlaying digital images over top of the real world. In our case, we're doing more like augmented virtuality, where we're taking real people, visual images of people, and overlaying those onto virtual scenes. And so in our particular parlance, mixed reality means essentially using an exterior camera to do a background removal of a person. We, align the coordinate spaces of the real world and the virtual world, and then, essentially create video, an output to 2D, so someone outside of VR can see essentially the context and the situation and the experience that the person in VR is experiencing as they experience it.
Cool. And so I've been a big proponent. The first time I saw this, one of the biggest challenges has been in VR is setting the context for the user, and it's been, I've heard it referred to as trying to convince somebody to do VR is like trying to sell somebody television over the radio, right? It's one of those things that if you haven't done it, you just don't get it. And so how do you get people to try it? And one of the things I love about mixed reality and specifically what you guys are doing at MixCast is that like it becomes really crystal clear what the experience is. Like, because you see the person, all these VR videos that you see are the first-person view. And so, it's like watching a Twitch stream of CSGO. And if you're not a CSGO player, you just don't get it, right?
Well, and you don't have any idea as a viewer that it's actually virtual reality. So, I mean, normally you get two choices, that first-person view, or you see a person with the bucket on their head waving their arms around. And that's not really compelling content. It's not compelling social media share content. It's not compelling marketing content. And neither is the eye texture, because it just looks like you had a really bad cinematographer, in a first-person shooter, record your marketing video. Yeah. And you're not going to get hired.
And so the key is getting, setting that concept and showing somebody actually in VR from a third-person perspective transported into that virtual environment, having fun is kind of the first step. And that's where you started, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we started really just wanting to be able to make this possible and be able to create the potential for anybody to, with a modicum of effort, find an easy way to do this. Because there's a way you can do it using Steam and Unity, but it's hard. And so we built a platform that makes it a lot easier. And so we've been iterating on that platform to continue to make it easier and easier as we go. And now we sort of started moving into how do we actually help people make better content that ends up being more likely to be distributed and of more value, not just the technology behind the content.
Yeah, and so those of you, I'm sure if you're watching this or you're in the audience, you've seen Beat Saber, and you saw a lot of the mixed reality videos that were on YouTube last year showing Beat Saber. And and it was interesting and it was cool and it's kind of a competitive game, so people were watching it. But we should probably get to the video at some point to show people how you've taken that to the next level, because this is really about storytelling, right?
Absolutely. That's my background. I've got 30 years as a games producer. 16 of those at EA, building things like Medal of Honor, and I went to Relic and was executive producer of Company Heroes, and I've done lots of that. So my background's more in that area, and it's nice to now be kind of moving into that space as we have built the technology, we built the platform, we built the distribution system, and now we're getting to move into the okay, how do we now make some great content and do some great storytelling? So why don't we?
Yeah, let's
show
you. We got a short video that'll show it to you rather than us sitting. I would have gone Girl from Ipanema, but that's just me.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Oh, God, that's too high. Oh, my God. Oh, my God! Wow! Oh, incredible! Yes! Woo!
Cool. How cool is that? And so now everybody doing a VR experience can actually have that done with a minor integration, right?
Yeah, so that, we worked with Toast, the creators of Richie's Plank Experience, and currently this is running on the floor in Intel's booth. We're an Intel partner. And essentially we did 114 of these yesterday because they're automated. It does all the cuts automatically, depending on what the person does, whether they fall off the plank, whether they fly around. Once it's done, we concatenate all the videos, we insert the pre-rendered shots, we lay the audio in, we lay the mic track in, and so everybody gets their own customized experience, and that gets delivered to a touchscreen kiosk.
And when you say you lay all that stuff in, I want to make sure that's actually...
It's all automated.
It's not, nobody
does anything, no. And so literally, we were doing a person every 4 minutes. They'd come in, they'd do their experience, and then they'd leave, and then they'd get their video. It would show up 15 seconds after they finished their experience, after we've processed everything and assembled it all. And it was great. People loved it. We had some incredible reactions. I think, you sort of hear, he's one of my producers, so, he's done it a few times in this particular video, but you hear reactions way crazier than him. I mean, I would say probably 1 in 5 people would not go out on the plank. Like, I can't do it. There's no way I'm going out there. We had one guy who was flying around, and like he just wiped out. I mean, he took out our light and our monitor, and he was laughing his head off. And we're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He's like, "I'm fine. It was great. Like, how's your monitor? It's okay. I hope it didn't break anything." And so it was really, really fun to be able to take people through these experiences. And we're showing it live on a monitor, and it cuts back and forth on the monitor as well. We're not showing the insert shots and stuff, but we had a line 3 to 4 people deep, which is about all the space there is in our area most of the day, because people were watching essentially this what looks like a live director-led show the whole time.
And that's the key. So if you're building any kind of an experience especially for location-based VR, I believe this is going to become table stakes. Like this is going to become an absolute baseline requirement for all location-based VR experiences sometime late this year. Like it's going to take a little bit of time to catch on, but because the biggest challenge that when I talk to VR arcade operators, and I've talked to hundreds of them, their biggest thing is, how do I get more people in? How do I create social content that is engaging? And you have to be able to amplify that, which means you need to be able to get your customers to find things that they like that they can amplify. And this is the thing, because it makes you want to do it, right? You watch that video and you're like, oh shit, I want to do that. And so automating that through a whole bunch of games in an arcade and then having that shared out tens of thousands of times is really going to be the key to, I think, the industry finally getting traction and driving revenue.
Yeah, I mean, we think so too. It's why we built it in the first place, was something because we believe it helps the industry. Because if you don't have something like mixed reality, you have no idea what the person in VR is doing, and it's just not contagious. And if it's not contagious, it's not going anywhere. And we have plugins for Unreal and for Unity for SDKs, and have now built the full end-to-end platform, cloud distribution, touchscreen portal, account management kiosk with multiple logins and permissions, and everything that you do with an enterprise level portal. So that's up, it's running. Anybody who's interested in doing this with their product or LBE or whatever, let us know.
What other verticals does it work for?
It'll work for almost any vertical where you feel like it's important to be able to record a quality content of an experience. So that could be in education and training. It could be we actually have a number of people in the education space using it for a variety, like just the general MixCast platform, not necessarily the full automated.
How would they use it in education? I'm really interested in VR in education.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things in general about the mixed reality part, and essentially being able to have multiple cameras as well, is that you can now, as an educator, be able to show something in VR to an audience outside of VR, and not just with the headset texture. So they can see the context of what you're interacting with. Because, of course, we're tracking hands or we're tracking controllers, we're able to show them holding and interacting with virtual objects.
So you're talking about distributed education outside of the classroom.
That's correct. Or even in the classroom, if you don't have everybody in a headset. Like, it's not like schools can buy a headset for everybody all the time. Like that's, they haven't quite figured out the pricing on all of this stuff yet, especially at the higher end. And so you can have a much smaller ratio of headsets to people who could actually be watching it, because we can do live streaming as well. Class, local and distant, could all be watching, essentially multi-cut live content of somebody interacting with something virtual.
Cool. Where does it go from here? Like, what's the future of this type of like mixed reality streaming context setting from an application standpoint? Like, what should customers or developers or operators look for in the future?
Sure. I mean, I think everybody's already looking for low operator overhead, and so that's a key area that we focused on, is how do we make sure that this is as easy to set up as possible, and once you've set it up, it runs with essentially no operator involvement, or as low operator involvement as possible. So obviously we always continue honing that. One of the holy grails people always want is headset removal, facial replacement. So that'll be something that comes down the pipe pretty fast.
And what you mean by that is like literally, so then the headset doesn't even show up. So how would you do that?
You basically do it with head scans or pre-done footage. I don't know, those of you who are familiar with the internet have probably seen things like deepfake or Everybody Dance Now, and there's a lot of facial replacement stuff already going on through machine learning. We've been running a machine learning group since September, doing a variety of different scene analysis and starting to get into that area. But Google's actually done some interesting work in the area where they've shown some videos of doing kind of a headset replacement and filling it in. And obviously HTC just announced the Vive Pro with eye tracking. Because the biggest area that you get a fail is is if the eyes are just dead. And I know when we built Medal of Honor Frontline, we added eye movement and some mouth movement to the characters, and that was the PS2 launch title or whatever shortly after. And when we did that, it really brought the characters to life. And I think a very similar thing happens. Like, we're trying to get the realest you that we can. Fine, you got a headset in your way. Well, if we can get your face in there with eyes that move, we already have your mouth, and so we have other parts of the face that are reacting. I think that makes for higher quality, continues to make higher quality content.
And so from a upgrade path standpoint, if somebody were to deploy the solution, is that something that's mostly software at that point? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's mostly software at that point, especially because essentially the solution that we're using in most of these cases is, we use Intel RealSense depth cameras. And so we can do no green screen background removal. I mean, obviously green screen, you always get a higher result, but that's going to end fairly shortly. Again, partly due to the amount of machine learning that's being applied to scene segmentation and background removal. And then really even on the fully, volumetric capture space, I think both of those we'll see, there's a number of companies specialized in those areas. And, so for us, that'll be just someone else's solution that replaces that part of it. And the rest of our platform will continue to deliver the storytelling, the automation, the ease of use for the operators.
Yeah, I think the no green screen, we didn't hit on that early, but for location-based, that's really critical because operators just don't want those giant, ugly green screens everywhere. And so...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that, the quality will continue to improve there, right? I think that's sort of been the first area of focus for us with the machine learning is let's get tighter in on a subject. Let's remove, any speckling that you get. Because with the depth camera, they're still early in their life cycle of development, and so, the depth isn't 100% steady and constant. Depending on your lighting and other things, you can have quality issues. And again, the fastest path that's going to fix that the quickest is definitely on the machine learning side.
Yeah, cool. Any questions out there in the audience, which continues to grow? Yay. I have a $20 bill for the first question. I knew that would help. I'm just lying, though, by the way. Sandra?
You answered a lot of my questions, which was about no green screen, and so I wish you had it here so we could see what it looked like how much stuff you need.
Well, you can just come to the Intel booth.
But I think it's
at CES.
I think it's a great question, which is how much stuff do you need? Like, what is it? What's the package? What do you need?
I mean, and we have several architectures that can work. So, in the Intel booth, we're running it with one PC that has both the experience and MixCast and our automated director features all on the same box. We have 2 RealSense cameras mounted, and so each they're $179 cameras. So we have 2 of those cameras set up. We have 2 USB 3.0 extension cables, and then in this particular case, we're running a 27-inch touchscreen monitor as kind of the kiosk.
Is that got its own computer?
And it's got an Intel NUC, as its power source. And we have it in the office running on about a 24-inch touchscreen monitor with a compute stick. It works on an iPad. It works on an Android tablet. We built it so that it can go to any touchscreen. You don't even need a touchscreen on it. So you can put it in a PC and it still works because it's all web-based. So that kind of is how the flow works. And then we can take that and scale it up to more of depending if you're running a location-based facility, you may not want to have anything taxing the device that's delivering the VR experience. And so we have the way that we handle the data flow architecture that will allow multiple backtops with people in those to just be running the experience, and we run each of the cameras on its own compositor box as a spectator camera in that experience, so we don't hit that device. And then we can also run it with what we call our sort of media server, so that as the content gets generated, it can be hosted locally. We can handle multiple internet bandwidth variables because we can upload thumbnails first out to the kiosk at a lower bandwidth with a very short edited clip. And that all, again, is all built in so that whether you have higher or lower bandwidth, if someone doesn't want to get their video, then you don't even need to send it up over the wire. So you can, essentially reduce that. We have retention policies and all those sort of things. So, but the minimum is you get a couple of cameras, and you put it on your VR box, and you go from there.
So do you take the user's email address and mail it to them?
So the question is, how do you share? How does somebody actually share?
Yeah, right now, basically, when they we have a list of the videos that have been generated, they touch on theirs, they enter their email, and we share it to them. From there, they're able to go to that site where they can do direct sharing out to social media from there, and that's built into the site that it lands on. As well, for people who are interested in a full integration, we can give them that code and that CSS. We already support, essentially CSS coloration and everything else, so it can be white labeled to be whatever their website wants to look like, even as it shows up. The URL would still be on our site, but we can, if they want to do the integration on their own website, that can be completely contained within their own area, even though it's hitting our servers on the back end.
Now, when we first started talking about this quite a while ago, there were some concerns about running it on the computer that's delivering the experience. How's that been working at Intel? Are they running like a giant supercomputer? Or
no, I mean it's an i9,
Okay.
and we've done a bunch of optimization with Intel to multi-thread it for i7s and i9s, and so if you're running an experience that's absolutely maxing everything out, then fine, we're more load on that machine, and it's the never-ending arms race of building digital content. I spent most of my career building games, so I'm very familiar with that race. And
Yep.
there's never enough power. You always want more power.
And more power. Scotty,
We got a question.
question. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there was a discussion about it seemed to be the early days of sort of the ethics and etiquette of content development. I was sort of wondering how you guys have felt maybe that space has taken shape over the last couple of years. Has there been any discussion about, the boundaries of use of it? Pretty powerful.
And when you say ethics and etiquette of content, are you talking about like the fact that it's public and and it's being shared, or what specific? Are you talking about game development and experience development?
Well, very playfully, the discussion was at that time a lot of the money and income was either military or foreign.
Yeah.
So trying to break away from that, and even in the space of porn, one of the things I was told is that first-person experience in VR is much more, how they phrase it, tender than a person who tends to be a viewer of a screen when you're an observer of people enacting. You tend to see cameras differently than if you're a first-person participant, which I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, really interesting question around the context of this versus the economics of the business models that are coming out where military and porn. And I'm just going to grab the porn thing because that's really funny and
Hey,
interesting.
we're in Vegas, right?
And we're in Vegas at a dispensary. And I've heard weed and sex go really well together. So
Don't know, but yeah.
and so yeah, like the porn industry is really running at VR hard. Have you? No pun intended. Have you played around?
No, we have not. I don't know. We have a free version of MixCast. We have thousands of downloads. It's entirely possible someone out there is creating this type of content. We are not currently aware of that because we're a platform. We're not just content creators. And so what people do with the camera after it's purchased is up to them, essentially.
But as far as streaming and sharing, obviously you would probably have some rules around what you allowed people to stream and share off your platform, right? I mean, because they can buy the camera and do their own shit, but
it's you end up with rights issues always, and so it just depends on where you end up with those, and a lot of that comes down to who's actually doing the filming and who's doing the distribution. It's I don't know. We could spend several hours on the legal side of that, but
yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Really interesting for further discussion. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else you want to say, Tarrnie? Because we started late, and if we can give him back 5 minutes to
no, I think
move
we're
things
good. Thank you
along,
very much for coming. If you get a chance, again, come by the Intel booth. We're in the central hall. We're in the creator zone there. And
what do you have a booth number? You don't need one if it's Intel,
it's
right?
Intel.
Okay.
I mean, I don't just
Yeah,
it's you go in the central hall, and it's like 5 times the size of this room.
And is there a way for people? Like, is it a huge wait to get in, or
No, I mean, we've generally had a line 2 to 3 deep the whole time,
Yep.
but generally that is not that long because they're 4-minute experiences. So people are waiting 4 to 4 minutes or so.
Cool.
And I think there's just literally no physical space in that area for it to be much larger of a line. So I don't think that it would be any larger than that.
Cool, and I'll just do a shameless plug. So that's my book, Real Money from Virtual Reality. It's actually about location-based VR and for solution providers or content providers that are looking to move into location-based entertainment. And you can check that out on my website at bobcooney.com, and the website for MixCast.
Yeah, it's www.mixcast.me.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Tarrnie. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bob. Thanks,
to
everybody.
Chris and Greg, and we're out of your way.
All right, thanks, guys.